It's my pleasure to now introduce another member of AU's staff. I believe we have Kathryn next. We'll see. It's a mystery. Yeah, Kathryn. Sorry, we're soon to have to us. So we have Honorary Associate Professor Kathryn Bowen, who is at the Fenner School for Environment and Society at AU. She works at the nexus of global environmental change and health, and she's a lead author on the health chapter of the 6th assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that Mark and I are working on as well. She's done an enormous amount of work, including a lot of really practical empirical work in all sorts of low and middle income settings, including in the Asia Pacific. So please join me in welcoming Kathryn.
Thank you, Lauren. So I'm going back to basics this evening. My usual talks spell out the fine detail of climate change and its health impacts, but in the brief time that I have tonight, I'm going to retreat to first principles and reflect on the fundamental areas that we have to get right if we're going to respond to the climate emergency that we are in and its resultant health impacts. These three areas are listening and storytelling, justice and economics. So to my first point, listening. I took my children to the free Melbourne Symphony Orchestra concert a few weeks ago. I'm sure you're aware of it, you Melburnians. The performances that are made accessible to all by the Mount Maya Foundation. I expected to hear some beautiful music, but I went away with something much more unexpected. Listening deeply and learning about the Bunjil land commitment. At the Acknowledgement of Country ceremony that preceded the orchestra, we were reminded that Indigenous communities have always taken an active and leading role in many areas, including health and well-being. According to Indigenous tradition, the land has always been protected by the creator Bunjil, who travels as an eagle, and by Wan, who protects the waterways and travels as a crow. Bunjil taught the Bunurong people to always welcome guests, but he always required that the Bunurong would ask all visitors to make two promises: to obey the laws of Bunjil and not to harm the children or the land of Bunjil. In Indigenous culture, everyone is encouraged to nurture and care for this land with love and respect, to protect the rivers, the creeks and the waterways as they are the blood of this land, and to observe the wisdom of Bunjil, to care for the children. Listening to this story, I reflected that it is acutely pertinent to our current situation. We are making disastrous environmental decisions that not only have impacts that we are seeing today, take the fires, the droughts, the floods, but are also projected to have grave consequences for our children and grandchildren. Moving across our shores to our neighbours in the Pacific, where I work a lot of the time, and non-Indigenous Australians have much to learn from the respect and strong links that are articulated between natural and human systems. This is encapsulated in the vision of healthy islands for Pacific countries, which recognises that natural and human systems are closely linked and that enhancing healthy communities requires ecological balance. This vision, endorsed a quarter of a century ago, illustrates that Pacific Island countries are already cognizant of climate change and other global environmental changes and the integral links with human health. Which leads me to my second point of justice. As you've heard from Mark, the impacts of climate change are extensive, varied and serious. Hotter on average, more extreme hot days, more heavy rain, more drought. These all have health impacts. However, without a greater understanding and respect for the earth that is our life support system, we will suffer, and those who are most disadvantaged will suffer the most. At its heart, climate change is an issue of justice. Both of the recent IPCC assessment reports, AR4 and AR5, state with high confidence that, and I quote, adverse health impacts will be greatest in low-income countries. Those at greater risk include, in all countries, the urban poor, the elderly and children, traditional societies, subsistence farmers, and coastal populations. And this is in the context of emissions being driven by the richest countries on the planet, including ours. There are 6 headline statements in relation to health impacts at 1.5 degrees versus 2 degrees. The first is that climate change is adversely affecting human health by increasing exposure and vulnerability to climate-related stresses. And the climate changes that affect human health include extreme weather events, a change in distribution of health risks, increased risks of undernutrition, displacement of populations, and greater risks of injuries, disease, and death. The second is that any increase in global warming, even an increase by half a degree, could affect human health. Warming of 1.5 degrees is not considered safe for most nations and communities. 3, risks to human health systems are projected to be lower at 1.5 degrees than 2, particularly for heat-related morbidity and mortality and undernutrition. 4, the impacts of 1.5 degrees could disproportionately affect disadvantaged and vulnerable populations through food and water insecurity, higher food prices, income losses, lost livelihood opportunities, adverse health impacts, and population displacements. 5, urban areas are particularly vulnerable to global warming when it comes to human health, especially around the urban heat island effect. And 6, climate change is projected to be a poverty multiplier. The health risks that come with global warming are unevenly distributed and are generally greater for disadvantaged people and communities in countries at all levels of development. Additional investment is critical to address these health challenges. The current funding allocated to health adaptation strategies is minuscule, about 1% of global adaptation finance. The World Health Organization is attempting to address this. The Director General Tedros announced that climate change is one of his priorities when he assumed the lead of the WHO. The WHO has developed practical training modules that are freely available online on climate change and human health, and is also developing country profiles for all member countries that highlight the climate risks to health and policy and practical solutions. The WHO has also developed their framework for climate-resilient health systems, which incorporates the 6 building blocks of the health system: the health workforce, leadership and governance, financing, service delivery, essential medical products and technologies, and health information systems. And then adapts these to view them through a climate change lens. So, for example, as part of health information systems, there is risk monitoring and early warning systems, and the assessment of climate change, vulnerability, capacity and adaptation. The Paris Agreement has a clear and direct health focus. It highlights the importance of co-benefits, sustainable food production and healthier diets, the need to work across sectors, measure progress, which the health sector is not very good at doing, and provide strong leadership in communicating to policymakers and the public about the urgent nature of climate change. Vitally, the Paris Agreement also flags that we must improve our economic assessments of climate change action and the health savings associated with this action. Which brings me to my final point on economics. A recent assessment by McKinsey helps guide us through the steps that need to be taken in terms of how to decarbonise, leading to better economic, environmental, social and health outcomes. The report prioritised 4 action areas to put cities in particular on a 1.5 degree pathway through to 2030. 1. Massive expansion of large-scale renewable power generation or decarbonising the grid. 2. Optimising energy efficiency in buildings. 3. Enabling low-carbon transport options. And 4. Improving waste management. All these opportunities provide a positive return on investment in the mid to long term, whether through direct cash flow for investors or broader boosts to economic activity in the city. However, and importantly, a wide range of benefits beyond carbon emissions are generated by these four opportunities, from reduced congestion, better public health and greater productivity, to improved quality of life and increased resilience. These all help make the case for investments today in our collective future to ensure our good health and the health of the planet. So, how do we ensure that we do support a just transition, as Mark was referring to a healthy planet and a healthy population? As scientists, we must double down on our efforts to present the evidence and adapt this to different audiences so that we can effectively share the messages. The Lancet journal stated in 2015 that climate change is the most significant threat to human health this century, and is doing excellent research and advocacy work with the annual Lancet Countdown on Climate Change. I spoke at the Federal Parliamentary Cross-Party meeting on climate change at the end of last year, and politicians there indicated their deep desire to hear more personal stories of impact, as this is what engages us as humans. Storytelling, deep listening, understanding the importance of a just transition can, I believe, support our urgent and immediate demands for climate change action and the benefits this will bring not just to our health, but to the health of the planet. And if I can get the machine working. Oh, super, that was magic. I'll leave you with one image. And this is a finalist in the Wildlife Photography of the Year Awards that are run by the Natural History Museum in London and go all around the world. It's called Sewage Surfer. I think it's a poignant reminder of the interlinkages between humans and the natural environment. This seahorse is not meant to be picking up plastic in the ocean. So on that point, thank you for listening, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the session.